Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefighters podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Gareth.
Let me just fix whatever I've done to my camera so I can actually see you.
You're all good, buddy. We don't use the visual anyway, but it's always nice. You're such a handsome bastard. I wouldn't want to deny myself of seeing you. There he is.
Look at that beard.
I know, mate. I just shaved everything off yesterday. Went head, balls, ass crack, sack, chin, everything got the trim yesterday.
That is a poor quality camera on a MacBook.
What, mine or yours?
Mine. I look like I'm sat in the dark. I'm sat in front of a window.
Oh, mate, you're all good. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm just starting to come to terms with the fact I'm going to have to lose my beard soon, which is...
What, you been off on block or something?
No, I partially tore both my bicep tendons in my arm.
Dude.
So I've been on light duties, yeah. But the thing
mate.
is,
We've got so much to connect on. I'm sat here at the minute with a fully ruptured right patella tendon.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even know I did it. I was at work for probably about 2 months, thinking that it was the tendonitis back in my shoulder. So I stopped benching and stuff, and it wasn't getting any better. So I went and saw a physio, and she's like, "Yeah, you partially torn both the tendons in your bicep." I was like, "Cool." So when I was dragging that tractor tire the other day, that was really helping then.
So both bicep tendons on the same arm, so you're right arm.
Yeah. So, but right up here in the attachment. So there's me off tendonitis in my shoulder, which I've had before, and it's actually. Yeah.
Have you ever had an injury like that before?
No. Well, a few years ago I had tendonitis, but nothing like that. No, I had that. I've been having that electrogun therapy. Have you had that?
Electrogun therapy? No.
Yeah, it really hurts.
Maybe I have. Talk to me about it. Was it? What is it?
Like it's like like the massage guns.
Yeah.
It kind of resembles that, but it comes on a big trolley. But instead of you having something pounding the muscle or whatever, it like shoots pulses of electricity.
Nice.
And they put like different nozzles on it. So like they got like a little thin one, which is like really targeted. And they take the thing off and like it increases the penetration by a couple of inches. So the last one I had.
It's always good.
It was like getting punched inside. Like I could feel it on the back of my arm. Just like,
wow.
Yeah, it's horrendous stuff, but apparently really effective. So
let's hope so, mate. I tell you what, tendon and ligament ruptures and all that sort of shit, I'd always rather snap a bone. Always rather snap a bone. I've torn my whole pec off once. I've had issues with quads before, a prolapse disc in my back. I'm not very kind to my body at times. I tend to really fucking push it to the limits. Probably, I think I struggle, and maybe yourself, like delineating between what is your body moaning and versus what is your body actually trying to slam the brakes and go, no, this is a fucking cliff. We need to stop now. I just think my body's moaning sometimes. I try and push through, but sometimes I think I need to listen to it more.
I've got a detached ligament in my ankle from years of going over on it, playing football younger. And it got to a point when I was about 40, I went and had a scan and they're like, your ligament's completely detached. So I was like, cool, what are we going to do about it? She said, well, you're basically too old, so we're not going to do anything. Because they were like, we'll basically be attaching scar tissue to scar tissue. What's the point? So
yeah. And not to say that she's wrong or anything like that, but it probably wasn't that you were too old. It's that it had been detached for too long.
Yeah.
Because snapping this tendon, it's like, you've got to have surgery as soon as possible, because the longer it stays detached, the longer the muscle atrophies and it just starts to shrink and die and shrivel. You've got to bind it back together as soon as possible. Yeah, when you've had something off for ages, like she said, depending where it is as well, though, you can sometimes cut out the back of your hamstring, and there's different you can do cadaver ligaments or tendons, depending how we go about it and all that sort of shit. But how old are you now?
45. I'm 46 in November.
Beautiful. So you're still young in the game, to be fair. You know, you've still got, well, I suppose looking at it now, you still got, I was scrolling through your all your socials the other day. So you joined when you were 26, and then since then they've obviously moved the retirement age back. How did the sort of things go down when you heard that news? Because I think we all took it in different ways, but you're one of those rare ones that's got a lot of passion for the job. So I'd be interested to see how you feel about it.
Yeah, so originally I would have had 10 years to go now where we're at. because I'd have had to have gone just past the 55 mark to get my 30-year pension.
Yeah.
I think are we at 60 at the moment? Is that
I
where
think
we're
we're
at?
at 60 now. Yeah. By the time I get there, it'll be 65, I think.
We did have a pension input from a lady from somewhere who kind of suggested to me that 57 would be the sweet point for me to go, because the hit I'd take on the payout, etc., I'd get back in years, kind of thing. Like
Okay.
I'd be working those 3 years on the spot, kind of thing. So, but I'm kind of hoping this whole pension dispute thing from before gives me my 92 pension back. If I'm honest.
You know what, mate? I'm certainly very interested in it. Obviously, with the podcast, we're actually having the FBU on quite soon to try and get a little bit of clarity, if that's even going to be the right word, because obviously they'll, with the greatest respect to them, they'll give us their version of it, an interpretation of stuff. But my kind of thoughts are, so I'm 30, what am I now, 33. I've been in for 16 years now. But I figure I'm going to be in for another 25 at least. So by the time I come round to discussing my pension with anybody, they'll have gone after it. I say they, the proverbial they have gone after it probably another 4 or 5 times anyway. So it's not that I don't care right now, but it's also like, it's relative to a lot of people because there's so much retirement going on right now, but the goalposts just seem to move on a freaking monthly basis.
Yeah, and I think they'd probably maybe go after it sooner rather than later in the current scheme of things as well. But,
Today's episode was brought to you by our good friends at William Wood Watches. We put so much thought into the people that we partner with on the podcast, and William Wood Watches has been with us since the beginning. This is a company that's got authenticity baked into every aspect of its fire service traditions. Now, they have 6 different collections now. In October, they brought out their new Fearless collection. Some refer to this as the dark side, and it's their first field range watch. Now, I've been speaking to some people in the past who have got that William Wood watch for a specific occasion for something really smart, really classy. But the best thing about the Fearless collection is that it's built to be worn in active surroundings. It's got that compact, rugged aesthetic on your wrist. One of the biggest things people have commented on, if you go over and look at their socials, is the firefighter helmet case back. They always do something special with the back of all of these. Now, before this, my favorite was the Triumph collection, but if you go over and have a look at this one, they've pressed into the back of each watch the UK firefighter's helmet. It's got the glass visor where you can glance through and actually see the movement of each watch. Now, again, if you're unfamiliar with it, the massive core of all these William Wood watches is the upcycling of firefighting materials. And the Fearless collection has got a 100-year-old British Bash firefighter helmet melted down and placed inside the crown of the watch. That's exactly the same as they have with all of their collections. But this one also features repurposed black fire hose, which is a really rare one for these. So go over and check out the brand. I myself went for the Valiant watch. I've had this for a couple of years now. Really nice. I've got it in the red strap, but I am also giving some serious consideration to the new Fearless collection. There's a whole range of payment options. Go over and take a look at them. William Wood Watches, Johnny and the team are there to give you that experience. Whether you're thinking of a retirement gift, you got something special to celebrate, or you have just started your emergency services career, go over and check them out, williamwoodwatches.com. The best way to support the podcast is to support our sponsors, so please take a click in the notes below. Now back to the show. What made you want to join the job to start with?
See, this is where we're going to get we're going to ruin some dreams here. So basically, effectively, I didn't want to join the job.
Mate, that is so common, honestly. Even like a lot of chief fire officers and stuff come on, they're like, I just kind of fell into it, to be honest.
Yeah, so I was working. Where was I? I was working as a duty manager at a hotel. It got a bit boring, so I applied to Eastleigh Airport, Southampton Airport's fire station. Were recruiting in the Daily Echo, because back in those days you saw jobs in papers.
Yeah.
On a Thursday was the job page. Unfortunately for me, that's how old I am. So I thought the money was a bit better than what I was earning, and I thought that's actually a pretty cool job. It's not very far away. So I applied for it, went through their whole process, had to go up to Heathrow to do fitness tests, etc. Got down.
I went to Heathrow and did those fitness tests once. I think the airport ones, certainly the ones that I did, Heathrow and East Mids, I think they're actually a little bit harder than like the normal generic fire service ones, because you had to do you did bleep test, press ups and 2-minute sit ups. What did you have to do when you went for that one?
Yeah, and then there was like I think there was like a shoulder press. Can't remember what the weight was. A bench. There was like some strength tests. But yeah, I agree. They're probably more difficult than what we.
I kind of prefer that. I don't want to make things silly and unrealistic. We don't want to have to be fucking Captain America. But I also, I want to keep the standard high. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I worry about that.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, I'm going to upset loads of old hands now, and I'm going to go out there and say that I personally don't think the fitness tests are anywhere near hard enough. I don't think an average person should be able to pass our fitness tests.
I fucking agree. Totally agree, mate.
And that, I know that's going to upset a lot of people, but it is what it is.
I hate it when people are like, I've got my fitness test in a couple of months, and that's when they start trying to get fitter for the fitness test. I'm like, people should be able to turn up any day and give you a goddamn fitness test. And also, training with 65 kilo dummies or even lighter in some services, I'm like, how many people get stuck in their house who weigh less than 10 stone?
Yeah.
Fucking nobody. I mean, maybe kids, but kids, people get their kids out and people like want to rescue their kids. It's old, fat, infirm, people that are struggling with their physical health that get stuck in buildings, or even if it's just like a BA part. What do you weigh?
I'm down to 78 kilos at the moment.
78 kilos. So I used to be an absolute muscle bound lump, but I've lost 6 stone and I'm still 115 kilos.
Yeah. I mean,
so how many people are going to pull me out? Not many.
Yeah. I was 90 kilos probably a year ago, but 90 kilos at 5'9" is a square, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a square. Well, I've seen you doing all your training and stuff like that. Have you altered your training at all as you've sort of gone through your career? Because I'm certainly like, I always talk to people about these chapters of life, and I used to be big into colossal deadlifts and squatting and all that sort of stuff. And actually, as a firefighter, it wasn't very functional. It was more just ego lifting, and I did it for strongman and powerlifting and stuff like that. But I'm getting into that chapter of life where I really enjoy being significantly more functional. And also, I don't think, even like you've kind of said, for my tendons and my body, I don't think you can keep doing all that craziness for years and years. You can still be playing with barbells into your 40s and 50s, but you just have to recalibrate a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've read it. I read the book, Firefighter Fitness, the American book. Have you read it?
Yes, we've had him on the podcast.
Yeah. So it's a bit like
Jim
stuff.
Jim. What's his name? Jim something. Can't remember. Anyway, yeah. Jim Moss.
The content is a little bit like yeehaw, go get them kind of thing, but actually the principles behind it are fairly sound. So I do a lot of like mini circuits in my fire kit because I think what's the point of training in your PE kit? You don't get the same mobility and range of movement and stuff in your fire kit as you
totally agree with you, mate.
So yeah, I mean, for my background is going all the way back to college is fitness. So for years I've probably done the whole bro split. And a cardio day or whatever. But probably more recently, 3 or 4 years, I've tried to get it a bit more functional. It's more fun anyway. It's more enjoyable than.
Yeah, you kind of gamify exercise, don't you? Because
we're quite lucky at South. So we've got a really good gym, and we've also got like under the washdown, we've got a couple of different size tractor tires, ropes. So yeah, it just keeps it a bit interesting.
I think we should be doing all of our fitness tests and stuff because, like you said about trying to train in kit, some people think that people are just doing it for social media and shit like that. And I've trained in my kit and filmed it from time to time. And obviously, we do all the firefighter challenge craziness and stuff like that. But just in terms of realistic, when people are doing the chest to step test or the treadmill test in the fucking vest and shorts, and I'm like, fuck is that? Do you know what I mean? Put your boots and your kit on. And I like the National Fireground test. That's a nice one for me.
Yeah, we down here we do the treadmill test, which walking on a treadmill for 12 minutes
proves something. I get it from a VO2 max perspective. There's a lot of science behind it, but I don't think it correlates to the job as much as I would like it to.
It proves if you lean forward enough, you can really make your blower back. But and we do the fireground test, but we don't do the one that they wanted to bring in. I don't know. I think some of the services brought the one in that introduced the BA set and the dummy drag and stuff.
Yeah,
we don't do that one. We do the old one. So you got like 3 years or whatever it is, 13 minutes to do the up and down test. Most people can walk it in 10.
I'd like it to be a little bit more stretched out and stuff like that. So you say you sort of fell into the job, but you've been in it now for how long? Have you been in it now?
It'll be 20 years in January. Yeah.
20 years. How have you managed to keep this sort, or is it just complete bullshit? You know, how have you managed to keep this optimism and motivation? Because people used to say to me, you know, I'll give it 5 years, you won't feel this way about it. And then they said, oh, I'll give it, wait till you've been in 10 years. And I've not had that. I think I've been strategic about staying away from those fucking mood hoovers and stuff like that as well, though. It's about the people that you put yourself around. How have you managed to keep enjoying it? You know, what advice would you have for people staying enthusiastic about it?
I mean, for anyone who actually does the job, it's actually, they'll agree with me, I'm sure, that it's quite hard to not be enthusiastic about the actual job end of it.
Yeah.
The hard part is that meme you always see about nothing good comes from a bunch of bored firefighters.
Yeah, 100%, mate.
So yeah, it's that bit you need to take care of, innit? I mean, I haven't done every job in the world, but I do truly believe it probably is the best job in the world.
Hmm.
And I mean, I'm going to go against a lot of the things that get said on your podcast because I have been at Southsea the whole of my career, and I know you're keen on people moving around. And I've also got no plans on being promoted because, like, when I got into the job, I wanted to be a firefighter, and I wholly intend on going out of the job as a firefighter, probably still at Southsea Red Watch.
Yeah. Mate, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I know for me, certainly, I just have that addictive mindset where I struggle. So, like, when I have those moments of emptiness and stuff like that, I know if I don't give my mind something to apply itself to, so whether that be projects outside of the fire service, projects in the service, whether it be a special teams or a project or a skill set that I'm trying to learn, or maybe it's the podcast or something like that, then I will get mischievous. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like I probably struggle more than most. Not that I'm special at all, but like I struggle when you said about, bored firefighters. I'm the worst example of a bored firefighter. So I need to keep myself doing different stuff. And I believe also it probably has diminished my long-term relationships with some people in the fire service because I like to move around. Every 2 years or so, I like to switch to a different team or do a different role. But I totally hear what you're saying with the progression thing. I mean, I'm a watch commander at the minute, but I don't have. I always used to think, oh yeah, I'm going to go all the way because I want to make a difference, blah blah blah. But I have less and less of an appetite for going beyond where I am now because it means coming off the trucks. And at the minute, I can't really find anybody that I necessarily admire or aspire to in those higher ranks. And so many of them always say that the most enjoyable time they had was when they were on the trucks with the guys and girls and with the team. And I think it gives you a better life balance as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I'd have been at a station that had a smaller watch or a smaller patch, I may well have moved. But I mean, I'm at Southsea. It's one of the three biggest stations in the county. They kind of bounce around depending on what's happened to crewing. At its height, we had 20 firefighters, 20 on a watch.
That's great.
So 4 JOs and 16 firefighters.
Fucking hell.
We're currently down to 15, but there's a lot of entertainment value. There's a lot of company, etc. in a watch that's that big. I think if I'd been somewhere where there was four people on duty, I maybe wouldn't be as enthusiastic, or I would have probably gone somewhere else. But I've kind of landed on my feet at Southsea, and most years it's one of the 3 busiest stations in the county, so call rate's still there.
How do you think people have found it adjusting to different sizes of watches? Because looking on your feeds and stuff, you've got tactical response vehicles and stuff like that, where I imagine you run 3 or maybe 2 people on those response vehicles at times. How do you think all of that was received? Because I imagine when you first joined, it was always minimum 5 when you joined on a truck, or were we already running 4s then?
No, 5 on one of the trucks. It would have been, yeah. Because obviously when I joined Southsea, we had a water tender, ladder, and a turntable ladder.
Yeah.
And we would have been a watch of 15. Then they closed another local station and we gained an appliance. So we went to 2 ladders, a water tender, and a turntable ladder, and a watch of 20. And then on the last risk review, we lost the extra ladder and gained what we call a small fire vehicle. So basically that vehicle only attends small fires in the open. It's got a very narrow call profile, but that's double jumped with the ALP. So we've got an ALP now. So that crew double
Does the
jumped.
output change for the turntable? Is that what
Yeah,
switched out?
when
Yeah,
it
okay.
when it got to like 16, 17 years old,
Okay.
they changed it to an ALP because the other aerials in the county were ALPs. We
Hmm.
we had the last of the TLs. So, but yeah,
I think there are some TLs coming back though. I think when I was looking at London's fleets, so for people that are familiar, ALP, so aerial ladder platforms are more of an articulating working at height for firefighting external structures and stuff like that. Whereas the turntable ladders were around a lot more maybe 30 years ago. And then the whole kind of aerial platforms and variations of different specialist fire appliances kind of fell at the wayside until we started having more instances like Grenfell, where now we're seeing a real resurgence. I mean, London have got a 60 something meter height one, and a lot of services have reinvested in these, but people kind of mistaking them for their ability to rescue from height, because most of these vehicles can't really do a fucking rescue from height. That's
no.
not really what they're designed for, because of
I
the
mean,
envelope and the platform that they need to operate on. They're really quite limited.
I was a turntable ladder instructor, and I'm now an ALP instructor. So, and I'm
Give
not
us
going
the rundown then, brother, because you'll be the best person to give it. See how much you can drag out of the memory. What do you think the big differentiations were from when you were leading the TL?
I prefer the TL, if I'm brutally honest. Quicker to get to work. The footprint was smaller. The jacks were smaller. The outriggers were smaller, and it was nothing fancy. It was a big ladder. You shot it in a straight line,
Hmm.
and it
So
was,
people that are unfamiliar, a turntable ladder was telescopic, isn't it? So you could just point it at something and just punch it up through a tree or towards a direction,
yeah,
versus
it was
an aerial ladder
basically.
platform. Sometimes you have to bring the cage down and then fuck about maneuvering it where
So
you want.
the TL was basically like, I think it was a 4-ton ladder set. That was it. It was basically a big ladder with a little cage on the top of it, which you could actually take off. You could just remove that if you didn't need it. That's where the whole clean pair of heels, where
Hmm.
people stood at the top of the ladder holding on to the monitor kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I preferred the TL, and I did hear that they're not making 32-meter aerial ladder platforms anymore. I don't know
Ah.
if that's true, but Hampshire have got 3 to replace very soon. So I'll be interested to see whether we go back to TLs or go to a bigger ALP. But the problem with a bigger ALP is it comes with a bigger footprint, and Portsmouth in particular is a very narrow city, and
Having it everywhere, mate. And again, just to reflect back to London, the streets and everything are so narrow for some of these vehicles, and even the appliance bays and the appliance doors. We're quite limited by a lot of these are listed buildings, so
yeah,
we can't even get the damn things in the bays anymore unless we start restructuring the whole buildings. Which again, for the fronts of a lot of fire service buildings, people won't know these are really traditional listed buildings. We can't actually mess around with a lot of them.
yeah. I mean, our ALP just about fits under the door, and it's got about a foot in front of it and 2 feet behind it. So anything it's not going in the bay. So
Yeah, and like you say, the weight of some of them as well, especially when we echo back to London, the weight of some of these vehicles. And I've seen loads of photos of them getting stuck outside high-rise buildings because they just fall through slab work and stuff like that. These are getting big, heavy things.
yeah, I mean, ours is small in comparison, and ours weighs 20 tons.
Yeah, not messing
So
about. You know what I
there's
mean?
areas in the dockyard, the Navy dockyard down here in Portsmouth, that we can't drive it across some of
Someone
the
will.
sims and stuff because it's too heavy.
You'll have a new JO cover in one day and someone that's just passed their test. I guarantee it'll happen at some point in time.
There you go into the dry dock. Yeah.
So, just for the benefit of it, when you're training people on an Alp, let's just go there for a second. What are some of the key sort of breakdowns, or if you could give us a whistle stop tour of what makes a good Alp operator?
Well, do you know what? Dexterity is the thing in it. Like, you've got 2 joysticks that do everything. If you're one of those people that's a bit slow, like, so if you were a gamer when you were a kid, you're probably going to be a really good ALP operator. If you've ever driven a mini digger, you're probably going to be pretty decent at it. So yeah, it's the dexterity really for me. The facts and figures are not so important as long as you remember the important ones, like how heavy the truck is and how far it can reach.
Yeah.
There's gadgets for the rest, but yeah,
Don't ignore the alarm when it goes off.
yeah, the dexterity of the 2 joysticks is, if you see someone like moving the ALP 3 or 4 ways, different ways at the same time, it's
Yeah.
a pretty good indication that they know what they're doing. If it
Mm.
kind of goes round and then elevates and then extends, that's someone who's probably not a natural or fairly new to it. Yeah, it's all in the dexterity of the two joysticks.
So one thing I wanted to speak to you about, because it was something when we were doing some back and forth on our conversations as well, was this aspect of mental health in the job. So you'll have seen a whole bunch of stuff since joining, and mental health has really come into the forefront of conversations, maybe in the last decade, I kind of feel. And I know you've done some work with the Firefighters charity and promoting the app and stuff like that. Where do you feel we are with that at the minute in terms of how we look after firefighters, how we appreciate the job that they do, and all kind of frontline responders, really?
I mean, if I'm brutally honest, I'm going to say we're behind,
Okay.
but that is a we, as in not necessarily the fire service. I don't think firefighters out themselves out.
There's a big emotional, there's a big maturity thing there. I'm not saying people are immature, but like to have these conversations, you've got to want to buy into it, which is kind
Yeah,
of
I think
harsh. But
predominantly it's about looking after yourself. It's okay to expect the service to support you in what you're doing, and of course they should. And there's no doubt that there can be some improvement on that side. But I think there's an accountability issue here as well, that firefighters have got to look after themselves. And it's one of those things where we're those kind of people where we matter least. Let's make sure everyone else is all right first, kind of thing. And that's, I think, a common trait probably across the fire service is generally people want to make sure everyone else is all right. But at some point, there's got to be that self-care. We all know we've got to be fit, don't we? We know that, yeah. But we've also got to, eat the right things, learn how to manage our stresses. It's a total package. And if you say to someone, what happens if you jump off a cliff, right? They go, well, yeah, I'm going to go splat at the bottom. But it's not the same with mental health, because it builds up your health and your mental health. It's building blocks. So, these eating all this shit for a couple of months ain't going to work. Well, it's not, but it's over time, the habits that come with it. Then you're going to start exercising less, and then you're going to take no time for yourself. You're going to stop reading your book, and relaxing and everything else. It's just a build up. It's a almost like a process that you can't let sink in. And I think that's where there needs to be more done by everyone in looking after ourselves in general, really.
I think it's a very personal thing as well, though. And that's why I'd love to hear, like, when you say about managing your health or keeping on top of it or doing those small steps, what sort of techniques or approaches or just ideas or things have you seen work well? Because I mean, even in my service, we actually had we've had a couple of people take their lives. Unfortunately, one only about a month ago, a lad in his early 30s, I think he was, just kind of took us all by shock, as it always does. What methods have you seen or do you use in trying to sort of decompress or like pull that pressure release valve in a healthy way? What have you used or what have you seen done well in the past?
Yeah, so I think first thing, which is something really basic, is making enough time for yourself for something that you want to do or you enjoy doing or you need to do. Like, even if that's half an hour in a day. I know people's lives are busy, but we can all afford half an hour, right? I think the problem is that people who suffer with mental illness, with mental health, end up finding their coping mechanisms and the help they need after hitting the bottom. And I think this is, I mean, if you go back a few years, the fire service jumped into prevention, didn't they? Fire prevention, right? The best way to combat this is we're going to stop it happening in the first place. That's exactly where we need to take mental health. We need to look at how can we prevent the lads and lasses hitting the bottom in the first place. And that involves the firefighters, the boots on the ground, taking part in that as well. But yeah, so when I've suffered myself, and the doctor suggested I went running, and I was like, I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm not really built for running, and I hate running. So she said, okay, well, I'll settle for walking, right? So I started walking, but for me, I was going like nice places, like up onto the South Downs and stuff. No headphones, focusing on being present, the sounds, the smells, the sights, just walking, try not to think too much. So now I walk a lot. I walk everywhere. I walk around the block a couple of times a day. I walk to work. It's become just walking is just a thing that I do.
What made you know that you were struggling? What was that kind of growing feeling, or what was the trigger for you to try and engage in something?
Well, I mean, the problem for me is there wasn't one. So basically, on a Saturday lunchtime, 2018, I think it was, one day I was in town at the shops, and I just sat down in the middle of the shopping centre and cried, just out of nowhere. Just started crying, sat down, unexplained, no warning. Kind of got pulled back up on my feet, and 10 minutes later I was back walking around the shops again, and it was like a weird episode kind of thing.
Yeah.
But after that point, what I discovered that basically was any change in emotion, no matter which emotion it was, proud, happy, not necessarily sad emotions, I cried. I had no control. I'd basically stopped functioning emotionally. Like anything that went over level was just cry. Was the so obviously went to the doctors. This is when you could see your doctors. And I didn't even finish the sentence. I can't stop crying before I cried. I didn't get to the word crying, and I was already crying. And fair play to my doctor. She was fantastic. Spent probably 40 minutes or so going through questions, looking at what can be done, what stresses could be relieved. She basically said I was suffering from emotional exhaustion.
Mate, that is so. I'm so glad you put that there, because that emotional exhaustion, and like whether it's adrenaline fatigue or empathy exhaustion, it's such a common thing now, mate.
And and so she's like asked all these questions, and she's like, literally the only stress that I can remove is work. And I was like, but that's the only stress I've got.
Oh no, yeah, I was gonna
She's
say,
like, yeah, but
for someone that actually likes what they do,
yeah, but
that's fucking
when
tough.
she's like looking at it, she's like, well, okay, well, I can't remove your family. That's obviously providing some of your stress is home. I can't remove the charity that you run voluntarily, because it's going to stop running. It's going to have to be work. So in hindsight, I probably went back to work too quick. I was off for about 3 weeks, walked God knows how many miles over the downs and everything else, kind of bailed the bucket out a little bit, so to speak, I guess. Walking became my coping mechanism. So if you ever followed me on Strava, you'd see me randomly like walking around the block 3 times a day, like just nowhere.
Have you got a dog?
Nope.
You need a dog. You need a fucking dog. But you would be a dog's best friend. I've always had dogs. We've got a puppy at the minute, and it's so therapeutic for me.
That started like my I'm going to use the word intrigue. So I'm one of those people I need to understand. So that was me. I started reading books, signing up for online courses. Like I've done all sorts of like mental health coaching courses and stuff like that, mainly because I need to understand from my point of view. I mean, the doctor explained it was that basically you might have seen it I posted on TikTok, the stress coming into the bucket, but the bucket's not draining quick enough. Like the stress is more than the release. So she's like, you've got to find a better way of bailing the bucket kind of thing. So, but that changed. There was a big thing around in one of the books I read about self-esteem and stuff like that, and how the physical links into the mental and all that kind of stuff. So that was.
What was your self-esteem like? What did you think of yourself as a person was having this challenge?
At the actual time, it was kind of like a what the fuck moment. What have I become? Because I'd refer to myself as what they would call the go-to guy, right? So you've got a problem, you go and speak to Garth. Do you know what I mean? So, at the charity, there's a problem with the dance school or whatever. They're coming to me, at work on one of the older hands, they're coming to me. Obviously for my kids, they're coming to me. So that was me questioning myself. I was like, hang on a minute, I've always been this kind of problem solver. Yeah. But now I can't solve my own problems. That probably sparked the education process. It was like, I'm not having this. That's not all right. So, I'm going to have to find out why. So cleaned everything up, cleaned my diet up,
What were your other conditions at that point? Like, we have to get too personal, but like, what were your habits? What was your nutrition like? What were you drinking, smoking? Were you staying up late, sleeping much?
So I think I'd given up smoking by then. I used to smoke a lot. I used to smoke 20 or 30 a day.
Wow.
My diet was rubbish, horrendous diet. And like they say, you can't out train a shit diet, can you? So
No.
You know, it wasn't that I wasn't doing phys, it was that I was paying absolutely no attention to what I was eating. And I mean, to throw into it, at that same time, my wife was going through treatment for breast cancer. Uh,
Wow.
so that made the whole thing even worse because like trying to be strong for everyone and not make it about yourself, but like knowing the doctors told you like you've got to ease off saying like I'm not in a position to be able to. Do you know what I mean? So I think on the run up to that incident, I think probably I was aware that it wasn't about me. Do you know what I mean? It couldn't be about me. There was people that needed it more than I needed it, kind of thing. But yeah, so going forward from then, I kind of cleaned up my diet. You know, really focused on my training, kept walking, trying to be present. I started journaling. Um,
Yes, brother.
which is fantastic. I mean, I know we've got this whole men don't speak problem, but if you can't speak, writing it down in the diary is the second best thing because you actually got it out. It's only onto paper, granted, and maybe no one ever read it, but the fact that you've expressed,
The sheer act of writing it down almost allows it to exist,
yeah,
truly exist in the universe, because it's not just a thought in your head. You write it down, and it almost gives you an element of detachment as well, where you can then look at it and go, "Is that how I
yeah,
feel?" Because I feel like I feel that way, but when I'm looking at it now, and sometimes it can make you feel better, sometimes it can help you get a perspective on it, or sometimes you can at least just appreciate that that was just a moment in time. Because tomorrow, when I look back, I don't feel that way anymore, and it was just something that was, it was like the weather. You know what I mean? Today I woke up, I feel like shit, but actually this will pass as well.
yeah. And I mean, I'll often just write. I'll just write, and then I'll read it back afterwards because I think sometimes when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, what happens if someone picks my book up and reads this? Like, I can't write that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So, a lot of times I just first thing in the morning, I'll get up out of bed, make a coffee. Won't turn the TV or anything. Open my journal and I'll just write a reflection of the prior day, how I've slept, kind of thing, and set myself
Hmm.
some small targets for the day. Nothing crazy like I'm going to achieve world domination. Kind of like I'm going to get my 10,000 steps in. I'm going to make sure I get a workout, and I'm not going to go to bed
Yeah.
without the washing up being done. You know,
Yeah.
realistic targets just to keep you on track because I find that's the best way to make habits. So the
Yeah.
following day, you go,
Has there ever been anything really surprising that you've seen yourself write down, or anything that scared you, or surprised you, or shocked you?
not in my writing when I was. We're going to jump back to the force now, but when I was down at Harkham House with the Firefighters charity, I had a conversation with one of the staff down there where I basically told them that I'd had suicidal tendencies without actually realizing that ever had suicidal tendencies,
Okay.
which as soon as it came out of my mouth, kind of like I just saw the reaction on the lady's face, and I was like, I've literally just said that I've considered like crashing my car, and it
Hmm.
came from nowhere, and obviously I was aware that I'd had those thoughts because obviously I was aware enough to tell her that, but
Yeah.
her asking me and I just replied because that's generally how I am. Someone asks me a question, I'll just answer. I like
Hmm.
to be quick with my opinion. And yeah, so not in the writing, but in that. And that was like a kind of Jesus. Yeah, I was there kind of thing. Uh,
Had you ever made a plan for it?
no, no. And that's why I think I've never really thought about it because I've never done that whole, you know,
How would I go
deal
about
that
doing this?
comes
Yeah.
with doing it. It's more of a case of driving down the motorway. What would happen if I just crashed into the, central reservation now?
Hmm.
And that literally came out of my mouth, and then I was like, shit, I've literally, and it was more than once, so it's not like but that's always,
No, man.
that's
I appreciate you sharing that, and I think it doesn't diminish it, but it's more common than you think it is. And again, I think it comes with that emotional exhaustion. And sometimes that I've certainly had it. You know, when I used to take a lot of drugs and stuff like that, there'd been times where I knew. I mean, I shouldn't have been taking the drugs anyway, but when I was so ashamed of myself for doing it, I had consciously at times knew that I should, for example, get rid of all the air bubbles in a syringe or something like that. And I'd almost, well, not almost, I would consciously half fill the syringe with air and inject it to think that maybe I could just kill myself here, and then that'd be easier than doing the hard thing, which was stop taking the fucking drugs and have a real fucking word with myself. The easy way out, and it don't diminish anybody that does come to that moment, but it just seems like the easy solution to some people when it's such a horrible thought to think that people get to a point where they can't think of any other solution, support, outlet, or connection, and that is the only answer in their own sort of sphere of influence or sphere of connection.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of these weren't like flash moments. These were thought processes. So I'm literally driving down the motorway. I just put the car into the reservation, and they're like, "What are you fucking thinking? Like you're on the way to pick up the kids.
Yeah,
Put that car into the railings now. It's going to be your fucking station that are turning up. Do you really want them to have to deal with that? You're going to put that on them." So even at that point, I still was thinking about other people.
yeah,
And like it wasn't like what you're going to kill yourself. It was like, but what about the kids? What about the blokes
mate,
who have to cut
you're
you out?
absolutely right. It's like taking your pain, timesing it by 10, or strapping a grenade to it and handing it back to everybody
Yeah,
that you love.
yeah,
That's what happens when you kill yourself, I
yeah.
think.
And literally, like I always say, my kids will never understand how strong they were for me without doing anything. All they do is
Yeah,
just exist, and they'll and that's it. Like the first, I put the car in there. What about the kids? Every single time, every time I had that
yeah.
thought. Um,
I was the same, and it
yes, I
makes you
know
almost angry at yourself then. And I think that's where anger and frustration can be really helpful because you're like, you selfish fucking bastard. Do you know what I
now.
mean? How dare you even think about doing that? You fucking coward. And I'm not saying that against anybody that has made that decision or anybody that has someone that's made that decision, but that was what helped me because I was like, you coward. Goddamn selfish. Do you know what I mean? You do that. That's the easy way out. That's the coward's way out. You know what I mean? What you really need to do is this. What you really need to do is that. That's the longer path. That's the harder decision. And you just don't think you're up for it. And I almost kind of like dared myself into trying harder to just be a better person and just try and get hold of my shit. And I know that kind of harsh love isn't necessarily good for everybody. It's just what worked for me.
No, I mean they always say, don't they, that nobody really wants to die. They just don't know of any other way of stopping feeling like they're feeling.
Yeah, man.
And that's
How did the I mean, you probably didn't share things to that extent with the rest of your team, but when you were obviously going through that period where you had 3 weeks off work, how did you kind of share it with your team or your watch or your service, and what kind of response did you get from it?
yeah. So basically, I had a conversation with the obviously the watch manager over the phone and just said I'm suffering from emotional exhaustion. Didn't go into any of the details, and I was like, I'm quite happy for you to tell the watch if you feel that benefits the watch that that's what I'm off with. I'd spoken to the old hands on the watch just after that and spoke to them in more depth about it. And I was like, I'm not trying to hide it. I'm not in a place where I can have that conversation personally with the whole watch. Like I said to you before, there's 15 of us,
Yeah.
but I'm quite happy for them to know, why I'm struggling. It's not. I don't want it to be a secret. I don't want.
No, because other people might be as
Yeah,
well.
I don't want them to think it's a secret while while they're looking at my Instagram of me walking over butts a hill with a beard.
He's fucking off on the sick. What's he doing? Taking the piss.
So, but the strange thing is obviously that was my big breakdown. That was 2018. I slipped again last year about this no October last year, which is when I ended up down at the Firefighters charities facilities, and I think many more people were aware of what had happened, why, etc., etc. And in comparison to the initial, let's call it incident, it was nowhere near as extreme,
Okay.
but it was just a lot more public because I'd started trying to like make awareness posts on Instagram and stuff in between times. I think it became very clear that when I look back now, I can almost see in my journal that things were going downhill again. And I think
Okay.
I just started feeling I could feel it like bubbling up again. And I was like desperately trying. All of a sudden I was out, stomping around the block again. And reading and signing up for courses, trying to like make it go away. I could feel it coming, and I still didn't manage to stop it. But instead of the doctors this time, I went through the Firefighters charity, and I've got to say they were absolutely fantastic from first contact to the check-in a couple of weeks after Harkham House.
Mate, we've done loads of work with them, and we've done a few episodes with them as well now, and I think they're still heavily underutilized, to be honest with you. And what worries me most is actually the number of new recruits and stuff coming into the job that don't even know anything about it. I think they really do need more advocates like yourself, and the podcast isn't the best thing in the world by a long stretch, but just anybody that's willing to share that aspect of it before it becomes something that they do it for, where they feel like they don't want to share if they've gone for help, and maybe they feel ashamed about the reason they've gone for help. But if they don't share it, then nobody's going to know about it. Hey folks, just wanted to jump in with a quick piece around firefighter health and wellbeing. Now, we get a lot of messages and emails into the podcast around firefighter health and fitness, whether you are trying to join the fire service and pass them tricky fitness tests, if you are currently serving, or if you are coming up to that next chapter of your life, retiring from the emergency services. We get so many different questions around it. So in partnership with Fitness for the Frontline, we have come up with a series of guidance and programs specifically designed to reflect the physical elements of the role of a firefighter. So whether it's carrying an LPP across an overgrown field, lifting a ladder above your head under running it, or wrestling with cutting gear for 30 plus minutes at some kind of complicated RTC, our bodies are required to lift, push, and carry objects in very specific circumstances. That is effectively what Fitness on the Frontline focuses on, as well as the longer term aspects of overall health and wellness for our firefighters. There are focuses around strength endurance, and overall conditioning, all achievable and relevant to our roles. Now, we are definitely not about to be smashing out world records or getting that beach body ready in 6 weeks rubbish. The systems and programs that we put in place are adjusted for people's current fitness levels, and they're not a prescriptive way or a one-size-fits-all BS. We also take into consideration all the fitness testing for initial application, and also for current firefighters who want to maintain and progress their fitness levels. It is very likely for myself personally that I'm still going to be a firefighter when I'm 60 plus, so longevity in the role is really important to me, and I know it is for so many people out there. The system has a built-in ability to adjust easily depending on the equipment you have available, your fatigue levels, or if you're coming off busy ass night shifts and you haven't got a lot of time to work out. You can record your results, log your weights, your body measurements. We've got all the facilities to do that. The system is yours to use how you want to train. We've taken all the fluff and the gimmicks and the BS away from most of the rubbish that you see out there. And this is designed by experienced operational firefighters and qualified people, including myself, with members of the team available to contact throughout the time you are within us in the program. If you ever get stuck, if you're starting to struggle, and also to celebrate those wins and achievements with you. It all starts with no obligation, 7 days worth of the programming, absolutely free. So whether you're joining, serving, or looking at the next chapter in your life, have a glance in the link for the podcast. Fitness for the Frontline is designed by firefighters for firefighters. Now back to the show. What made you first want to start sharing your kind of journey in the fire service, journey in life on social media? Because for some people, they really struggle with it, but it's the kind of the whole point of the podcast is like, we've got some incredible people in this sector, and what we do is freaking amazing, and most people agree, but unless they get over themselves and kind of put themselves out there, then no one's going to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm laughing because obviously through the years, I get you're posting
you get some
again.
shit, mate.
You're just mad because for some reason you can't bring yourself to post a picture on Instagram of a fire engine. I don't understand it. You're really going to dig me out because you can't bring yourself to do it because you've moaned about it for so many years. But I mean, for me, I think the fire service is almost like this mythical beast, or it was until a few years ago. Like, no one really knew what happened in a fire station, and because of that, our colleagues in blue and green have been able to paint us with these awful myths of playing snooker and.
Yes, mate. Well, I feel like 30 years ago, fire stations were more open, as in they were more community driven. We did a lot more like open house stuff. And then when people got a bit scared, when social media started coming around and a few people got their fingers burned, then all the doors got closed. Yeah, mate. I always say I'm the canary down the mine. I say, look, as long as I've still got a job, you're all okay. Yeah. When I get sacked, then everybody needs to like settle down a little bit and maybe wind themselves in a little bit. But my service is on board with what I do, and I always say that the worst thing you can do is not be part of the narrative, because we will successfully put ourselves into insignificance if we don't share. I mean, like the military, the NHS, the police, they seem to be sharing a lot more than we do. I don't know if they just actively recruit more social media people,
Yeah, and
or we're still in love with like putting posters up and shit around places. People don't see that. No one's watching,
I
right?
don't want to dig the comms departments out too much.
No, they're
Um,
trying. They're just under resourced most of the time.
yeah, and a lot of their stuff is kind of like they've got a job to do with, aren't they? They're trying to inform.
It's corporate. They're held to a different standard. And also, to be fair, they're not operational people sometimes. So they need the operational people to be on
Yeah,
board because that's what they're trying to
but
sell.
I just found, especially through the TikTok, that the most profound things cause like the most interest. Like, I'm sure you've seen like recently the thing with the hydrant mark.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
did that video a year ago, and it went crazy. People, particularly in America, couldn't believe our water came out of the ground. Right? They're like,
Mate,
um,
I know. You've got seriously like millions of views on some of your stuff. There's like 44,000 something
yeah,
followers and millions of views on some of your posts. And for people in the fire service that like some of them think they're too cool for school, will be like, really? That shit? We all know that. And I'm like, yeah, but the public
no,
don't.
no.
Public don't, and they're genuinely fascinated, but you won't get over yourself enough to
I
explain
put
it.
a video up of our dorm, and we've still got a really old school dorm, right? It's got like the what I call the bugger boards in between the single beds.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think it did about 1.1 million views in the end, and people couldn't get their head. Like a lot of people thought it was a ball stall.
Yeah,
Some people thought it was a room that we put like families in that their houses had burnt down, that we took them back to the fire station and they kind of slept there and stuff.
yeah,
Believed it was actually where we were supposed to get our heads down. And I was like, and there you
yeah.
go. Now
Mad,
you
isn't it,
think
mate?
we're in some kind of Premier Inn or something. There's the reality of it. Do you know what I mean? All
Yeah,
these,
stud walls and
yeah,
curtains and holes everywhere
and
and plug sockets which are a bit questionable.
buggers in between the beds. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, and that's the interesting thing for me, is that things that obviously in the job we take for granted, and people are just like, I can't believe that that's actually a thing. Obviously, you
Yeah.
get the enthusiasts who just want to see the trucks go in and they want to see you do the cool stuff. But the stuff that seems to get the most views is the stuff that are obviously like little fire brigade isms that we take for granted and don't even think is an interesting thing. People are just like,
Mm.
what, that's like a real thing. Uh,
Yeah.
and
And also, I always think to people that the person you are now, not as in you, as in Gareth Smith, but like the person that the firefighters are now, whether they've been in a year, 2 years, 10 years, 15 years, is the person that they were fascinated with at one point in
yeah,
time. Person they maybe even looked up to or they had admiration for. And a lot of people want to viscerally support and sort of celebrate our emergency services. But unless you give them a flag to fly, unless you give them something to support, it's easy to say, oh, nobody cares about the fire service, nobody cares about the NHS. No, they probably do, but you don't put yourself out there for people to support and appreciate and acknowledge there's some of the incredible. We've got some amazing people that work in our sector, and I feel it's such a disgrace that I secretly want to have these episodes living for years where when Gareth's retired or when so and so's retired, we've had one or two guests that have left the job and passed away. And I think there's something so nice about the fact that people can then go back and listen to them
yeah.
in the job and loving what they do and speaking with such passion and enthusiasm about
And I
it.
mean, the other thing as well is obviously with the TikTok is so I think I started my TikTok in the middle of the pandemic when we were literally at the station and we weren't allowed to do anything apart from exist with a mask on.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, in the March. And then it was, I think, maybe summertime that I thought, hang on a minute, I'm missing something here. I'm missing a trick, because I'd got up to about 3,000 followers or something. My videos,
Mm.
some of my videos had done all right, 600,000 views and stuff. So I decided to add the hashtag test your smoke alarm. Right. So I add the hashtag test your smoke alarm. And on each video, the last 2 seconds video, it pops up test your smoke alarm in the middle of the screen. Right. So since then, it's just over 20 million views on that hashtag. So when you put that into perspective, like whether you took the message or not, you saw the message, right? You saw the message was test your smoke alarm. And if you watch the last 2 seconds of my video, you saw that message. And, on a Tuesday, I'll do Test It Tuesday, like most of the services on TikTok do. So there's no way that I haven't made more people test their smoke alarms, which is fundamentally, let's face it, probably the best thing that we can get them to do in their own house. You know, when you look at it that way, that's got to be beneficial, right? Just that point alone. That's without any other fire safety advice or anything else. And you know, I'll get people going, "Oh, you're the test your smoke alarm man." I am, and let's hope you've tested your smoke alarm. You know, I'm not wearing my wig and my glasses and my medallion, but that is me. I'm embarrassed now, but have you tested your smoke alarm?
No, mate, I totally live in that same space. You know what I mean? I'm willing to have people ridicule or look like a dick or get it wrong. I always call the podcast "Learning Out Loud" because I'll often recall things wrong, or I'll make a mistake, or I'll get my wires crossed or something like that. But I know, from the feedback and stuff that we get, that people take so much value from hearing from people like yourself and all the other incredible people that we have on here. And I'm willing to look like a dick every now and again for the end goal, because I think it's far more important than just me.
I mean, and the thing for me is that obviously some people in the job might think that I'm looking like a dick at work with my wig and glasses on or whatever, but that's because they're comparing it to themselves at work, right? So I like to have fun as a person because I am a firefighter, but I am actually a person as well. I don't mind having a little dance. I like dressing up. Like it's just the perfect combination for me because I've got an audience. I've got a niche that is, the fire service. I'm getting that message out, and I'll stand in the appliance bay at 5 o'clock in the morning, laughing to myself, making stupid dancing videos because I know I can't make them whenever everyone else is about. Do you know what I mean? So I'm literally hid around the front, and I'll hear the door open. It's the coppers coming in for duty at 6 o'clock. Like, I'll quick one more take kind of thing before they stop in the Elvis wig and glasses. Yeah, so that's just me, innit? If
Mate, most firefighters are like that in some way. We're all freaks in some way. I always say, if people didn't get into the fire service, they would really struggle in normal society, because the best watches with the strongest cultures are full of a bunch of freaks. So just some weirdos with some crazy passions, and they're all just mad as a box of frogs. Yeah. But that's what makes it so powerful. That's what makes those extroverts and introverts so effective when they're out there trying to solve problems that there isn't a perfect solution to, when they're trying to do things that ordinary people wouldn't be needing to do. They need to have a little bit of that about them. If we were all just, as we sometimes portray, if we were all just this glistening, we're disciplined, don't get me wrong, we're disciplined and we're very good at what we do, but we're not all perfectly dressed, shiny shoed, yes sir, no sir. We're a bunch of, he's trying to herd cats every day if you're a watch commander. Do you know what I mean? So and so's, he's here and he's there, and this girl's, all over the shop, and you kind of muddle your way through the day with a team of freaks, and I love it.
There's no point doing all these amazing things if no one knows you've done them.
Yes, 100%, mate. 100%.
What's the point of us having this massive skill range of all these? We should just be called the anything that the police and ambulance want to deal with brigade or something like.
Yeah, I always say, when the shit rolls down the hill, you know exactly what you call the police for.
Big now, aren't they? Like literally, like
we're just like with the bottom at the bottom with the goal net, saying we'll catch everything else. Yeah. Anything you can't think of a solution for, we'll rock up and we'll fix it.
Yeah, the police are the top corner of one side, the ambulance are the top corner of the other side. We're the rest of the goal, literally. But, if you don't go, like we've been doing a lot of fundraising, particularly since my visit to Harkham, because obviously I've had a newfound appreciation for the charity, and I was like, we need to make these people some money.
100%.
And I've kind of tamed my watch, because I go back a couple of years, I'd have the camera out and they'd all be nervously looking, thinking, "Oh no, he's filming me," kind of thing. And now they don't even react to it. They don't, I can pull my camera out, my phone out, and there's no react.
That's really, really powerful. How have you managed to do that then? Because some people hate it. Okay.
But the way I've done it is because we've got our watch has got an Instagram page as well.
Yeah, I see.
And I kind of just explained to the watch that the only way to raise money nowadays is online. And the only way we're going to do that is if we've got a presence. The people need to see us doing our training for the challenges. They need to see us on the challenge. And then when they see that, they're going to click on the link and they're going to go and sponsor us. If you just put a link on your personal Facebook, which is, as dry as a pair of flip-flops in the desert, no one's clicking on the link.
And you audaciously just think, oh, well, we're the fire service, so people are going to donate. No, they're not.
No, but
Because who are you? Do you know what I mean? No one knows what you're doing, who you are. You just can't think, oh, we're just the best thing since sliced bread, so people are bound to give money. No, they're
no,
not.
but a live video of us still climbing the ladder 23 hours later at 4 o'clock in the morning. People are going to see that when they get up at 7 and go, poor bastards, click the link,
Go, bloody
subscriber,
hell. Fucking, they're really
Um,
going for it.
so
Yeah, and it's not going to be perfect, and someone's going to be struggling, and maybe they didn't have 3 points of contact, but you know what I mean? Nobody got injured. Nobody got sacked.
no,
Do you know what I mean? Let's get over ourselves a little
and
bit.
climbing a 135 for 24 hours is horrendous. Let me just tell you that.
Yeah, we did an Everest ascent on it, but I think it only took us about 6 or 7 hours. We haven't done a 24-hour one for it. But that's what I love about a lot of the stuff where people raise money for the charity as well. There's so many intuitive things and imaginative things. I'm trying to sort of hone in on a different one for next year. It'd be lovely to see what you boys and girls have kind of got planned, and whether or not we can help share and support that. Get a few of the team members on or something like that. What do you think is one of the most proudest moments that you've had in the job?
I mean, I guess job wise, I'm still in it, if I'm honest. That
Nice.
I've managed for 20 years. I'm not one of these people that really likes to go there. That was my crowning moment. I think um, the fact that almost 20 years in, I'm still enjoying it. I'm still able to do it, which is a massive thing for me. I don't want no one carrying me. Like, if I'm
Mm,
doing the job, I've got to be able to do the job. I'm glad I stumbled upon it, if I'm honest. And like I say, for me, it sounds sad and a little bit spotterish, but I am proud to wear the uniform.
100%. Doesn't sound sad at all. I think it's upsetting when I hear people say any different about it.
Yeah. So to those four people that are listening that do think it's sad, you're wrong. But yeah, for
Yeah.
me,
Fuck off. Go and get a different job.
the pride for me comes in the fact that I've heard it numerous times across your podcast. Like, we're the people that get the honor of responding to someone's time of need. It could be
Mm.
their, it might not be so serious, but it's still their emergency. Do you know what I mean?
To them, it is an
Yeah,
emergency.
yeah,
They think they're having the worst day of their
exactly.
life. Whether you think they are or not, they think they are. And they've run out of options and they're calling you to fix it.
For that to be us, for that to be me, and the rest of the watch responding, I think the the pride in yourself for having that role, I think, is vital to appreciating the job and really maintaining your competencies in it. I think
Mm.
it's a total package, because we can all read the PowerPoint and get the tick in the box. But you need more drive than that to really understand the subjects, don't you? So yeah, for me, the pride really is in the total package of that I'm still doing the job. It is a fantastic job. It's a really important job, and yeah, like I say, the fact that the things I've been through personally, and I'm still clinging on in there by the fingertips, is probably the proudest part of the story so far.
I don't think your fingertips. I think you got a firm grasp on it. I wanted to ask you kind of advice on, and I know it's maybe a question for the whole team or the whole watch, but from your perspective, what advice would you have for people that are maybe like loads of people are getting new recruits on their watches now and their cultures are going through a whole different shift? It sounds like you've got a really healthy team. It sounds like you're part of a really good watch culture. What advice would you have for anybody in trying to develop a good team, whether it's eating together, training together, share? What sort of things do you think work well for teams?
So, I mean, obviously, when I first joined the watch all that time ago, everyone ate together. But I think now, with the varying diet and nutritional requirements of the watch, uh, the best
Yeah,
thing you can hope for is everyone sat around the mess table eating at the same time.
I think that's important, mate. I miss having big meals
Yeah,
together,
I mean,
but I think it's important to eat
for
together.
me, obviously there's the stuff that happens outside of the shift is equally as important as the stuff that happens in. So like the challenges that we do, they don't have to be challenges. It could be the tough mother, or whatever, or just going for a beer at 1800 on the second day. I think that kind of bonding is getting harder and harder as the
Mm.
workforce gets spread further and further around the country.
Yeah.
Again, when I joined the watch, everyone lived in Portsmouth. I think there's three of us that live in Portsmouth now out of 15. So,
Yeah.
grabbing a drink at 1800 might sound simple, but that's half an hour outside of work for actual bond.
People that have got a 2 hour commute or some shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, for probationers in particular, I'm going to say don't be in a rush. Don't be in a rush to get your folder
Yeah.
sorted out. It will sort itself out. Your focus should be on learning from the watch and learning the job. If you do that, your folder will take care of itself. Like
Yeah.
it's just paper.
And also for them, for me, it's like, always be 15 minutes early, always hang back for sort of 10 minutes, use those handovers, embed yourself in the station, not just your
Yeah,
team. Shut up and listen a lot, be interested in the people that have been there and done it.
yeah.
That's it,
Before you
brother.
speak. But yeah, I mean, we always say to our new recruits, we want to see that you're interested. You will pique our interests, right? You know things that we've forgotten, the same as we know things that you haven't learnt yet. So, if you want to practice your knots of lines, the best thing you can do is go down, take yourself down the back of the truck, throw a line over the back of the ladder, and get tying some knots of lines. And I guarantee you, nobody will walk past you without stopping. Because
Yeah.
one, they're going to want to see what you're doing, whether you're doing it right. The next thing you know, it's going to be half an hour later. They're going to teach you some knot that's not even in the fire service manual anymore.
Yeah.
And then there'll be a crowd. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
There's 4 or 5 people around. We've got the axe off. We've got the barrel off. We've got the triple X off. There's
exactly.
2 GP lines to work,
But that, I think for me, that shows the watch that you're keen, because no one asked you to go and do that. You've done that off your own back. And then you're going to draw the watch in. You're almost motivating the watch to get keen with you again. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I say, I know they've got this folder to work through, but if they embrace the job, that folder will take care of itself. It'll be easy to fill out. If they go searching for answers in the book, they're not going to find them. That's an answer sheet that's blank, isn't it? They've got to write. They've got to do the stuff before they can write it. So
100%.
don't be in a rush to become a crew manager when you've just literally come out of training school. Just take your time and enjoy the process. It's a process you should enjoy. I'd love to go back to being a probie again. Yeah, I think as well, for the probies coming, the development firefighter, sorry, that's what we call them now, isn't it? Development firefighter.
Yeah.
When they come onto the watch, it's important not to knock their enthusiasm out of them. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's important to let them be keen, encourage them to be keen, but to do that, you've got to join in a little bit. Like, I know it's Saturday afternoon and you might not want to do it, but it's just a couple of ladders. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah. Don't be a fucking dick. Come on, it's really important for them, and you will need their help with something as well when doing something on the computer comes around, and you're not very good at computers, and you want to ask them for a little bit of help or something.
There's a fine line to be had between the old hands and the development firefighter that you've got to give them a little bit to maintain their keenness, ain't you? Find yourself a job as a safety officer on the drill or something, and it'll be all right.
So I did want to ask you about, when we spoke about the mental health stuff, we'd seen some stuff on the Firefighter Podcast app and we actually had the gentleman on along with Ruth, a gentleman from London whose name escapes me, but you've actually started kind of a walk and talk group around yourself as well. How did that kind of come about, and how is it going so far?
Yeah, so was it Dean you spoke to?
Yes, I think it was Dean. God, you got a better memory than me.
Dean come up with this concept. It's just we Walk and Talk 999. They've just had their first birthday, so their first walk was a year on Tuesday. Congratulations, Dean, if you're listening.
Absolutely.
So he came up with the concept, and I think it was kind of May time. I was thinking like I need to do something. Like I was saying earlier, I like solving problems. So I was like, I need to do something. And strangely, I went onto Twitter and this account came up, Walk and Talk 999. So I clicked on it, and they're doing like a weekly walk around the park in London. So I just dropped him a direct message saying, is this something that you'd be interested in like expanding? I'd really like to do it down here in Portsmouth. And Dean was very quick to come back and said it was already being rolled out some other places, and he'd love me to come on board and open one up in Portsmouth. So I think it was the end of June. June, I did my first walk down on the seafront. Obviously, we've got the best walk and talk location.
Absolutely.
We've got the beach. So I started that in June. And for me, the important thing is we were saying earlier about men not talking. So it's an opportunity to turn up. Right, we're gonna walk along the beach for an hour. We're gonna have a coffee. 9 times out of 10, we end up moaning about the job. Right, it's just what it is. Sometimes you break off into smaller groups and you end up having a little bit more serious conversations. If people want to have those conversations, it's a completely, the walk-in's not optional, the talking is. Because it's I was talking to lads at work the other day, and we were saying a lot of the lads, they might not admit it, but they were going for their 4 days and they won't have a kind of man-on-man conversation for their 4 days off. They don't want to go home and bore their missus with how crap work was, or so and so done this, because like who wants to have that conversation?
Exactly, who wants to live with that person?
That kind of sounding off, venting, I think is again going back to the prevention thing. Like some of the blokes who come down on a Tuesday, they're not coming back from suffering from some kind of mental illness incident. They're just coming down there because they enjoy the company and a walk along the beach and a coffee. You know, sometimes, and the best thing is there's always different people. We turn up every week, different people turn up each week. You know, you have different conversations about different things. We have some police officers turn up. We're yet to have any paramedics yet, but I think they're just grossly busy with their horrendous shift patterns. So it's generally a nice blend of police and firefighters, men only, because that's the target, right? 3/4 of suicides are men. Men are the ones that don't talk to anyone. So I think if you introduce women to the walk, the men are going to either stop turning up or stop talking, either or.
Okay.
So it's kind of almost like a massive kind of super watch structure where you can just all bundle in, and it's like the lads bumping their gums and getting some fresh air.
It's really important, and I think there's something about going on a walk as well. I mean, when I used to be single, I always used to find going on a date, the best date for me would be like going on a walk, because it's not like a therapy session where you're sat opposite somebody and there's a real great pressure for you to, it's your turn to talk now. You need to open up. You need to deliver. You need to tell me about stuff. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when you're walking with somebody, you're taking in the surroundings. You can talk for a bit. You can not talk for a bit. You can change the subject, and there's less pressure. And I just find conversations flow a lot easier. It's a much healthier environment to be able to do something like that.
And a lot less eye contact because you're walking.
A lot less eye contact, a lot less pressure. Yeah, that's it.
So, you get the beautiful sea air, you get a nice walk for an hour, get out, get a bit of movement. And, I've got no doubt that everybody, I certainly do every week, leaves feeling better, because what was on your chest is gone. It might have been the most silliest events about, someone's blocked your annual leave for next week, or you can't believe the missus makes.
And you might know there's nothing you can do about it, but you just want to be heard. You just want to be listened to, and you want to know that somebody cares. And then when you've vented it, when you've had that sounding board, you can digest it.
I personally think that lack of venting is the very, very beginning of the build-up, because once that's all been held in for X amount of length, then you're going to start holding in and stuff on top of that. When it does explode, you're going to feel a little bit like ridiculous. It's like, well, you blocked my leave a year ago.
Yeah,
that was just the first bit, but it's the first bit that's going to come out when you explode a year later. So
100%, mate, 100%. It's adding all of those little bits to the scales. It's the straw that breaks the camel's back eventually.
At the same time, I am there. We have got a list of signposting options. We're not counsellors. It's peer-on-peer support. I've got no extra training for, counselling or anything. I'm just someone who likes talking. But, I've got a list of places that I can, refer you to for help if you feel you need it, or, if the conversation and just expressing yourself is not enough. But like I say, some of the lads turn up with their dogs. They just, they're there for the social aspect of it, of going for a nice chat and a coffee with the lads on a Tuesday morning, So we do it on a Tuesday.
Mate, I love
so the
that.
kids are at school. There's no one in the way.
Look, so what we'll do is after this, I'll ask you to send me links to the London page and also the walking page, and also to your own sort of TikTok and the Southend Sea Instagram page as well, mate. So that people, if they want to go over and learn a little bit more about it, or if members of other services, NHS, police, or other firefighters want to learn a little bit more about it, or maybe they want to start it up in their own sort of district or service, I'm sure you'd be happy if they would reach out through one of those methods.
Oh, well, yeah, 100%. I mean, I know South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, they're on board. County Durham are running walks. I think West Mids Police running walks. Obviously, I think there's 4.
There's a lot of welfare dogs as well that are coming into the services now, which I love. Yeah, I'm a big one for dogs and animals.
Idea. When there's 3 or 4 lads who turn up on a Tuesday with their dogs, and the blokes without the dogs, you can just see the jealousy. They're kind of like, oh, yeah. Dog, hey! I've got a cat about to jump on the camera.
Love it, mate. Well, look, brother, I really appreciate you taking what's probably been a couple of hours out of your day now, mate, to kind of shoot the shit and go through it all. I think it's really important for people such as yourself to keep putting yourself out there, mate. I know so many people take value from it, even if they don't have the confidence to reach out, even if people that work alongside you feel a bit too cool to really say that they appreciate what you're doing. But the honesty and humility that you demonstrated today is colossal, mate. And I think the key to us being more successful and having people being in the job for longer is if they can get a little bit of the humility that you've demonstrated today. So I really appreciate it.
No worries. I appreciate you having me on. I mean, I'm just looking at that list of borough commanders, chiefs, ACOs, athletes, Garth.
Their shit still stinks, mate. When we retire, we'll all just be normal people again with a hell of a lot of good stories.
100%. Yeah. All
right, mate. Well, send my love to the family, and I look forward to speaking with you soon, brother. All right.
I'll speak to you soon, Pete. Take it
easy, mate. Bye-bye.
The Firefighters podcast is a global podcast seeking to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operators. Through a series of wide-ranging conversations celebrating those within our sector, we seek to encourage and support this incredible group of people. It's brought to you by myself, operational firefighter Pete Wakefield, and I speak with individuals from all walks of life who I sincerely believe can add value to or develop those who have chosen this life path. Please support your emergency services wherever you are in the world, and thank you for listening.